Hey, what's happening? It's Andrew Grillos. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm going to tie my user-friendly for you this evening. It's kind of similar to my Hippie Stomper in a number of ways, uses a lot of similar materials. I go for a little bit more slender profile with it though. Works really well for imitating a little bit more of a mayfly, less so kind of general terrestrial, kind of like the Hippie Stomper does. The original version of this fly I tied in that PMD color. I ended up fishing the day on the East Gallatin River, not too far from my home here in Bozeman. And yeah, I had my prototypes for this fly with me, and they did really well. I actually think they outfished a kind of sparse, more natural PMD imitation. It's kind of rare, I think, that in kind of slick water with some picky fish, you can find a foam and synthetic dry fly that'll outfish those kind of CDC and more natural material flies. I think it's a huge advantage tying with synthetics like this pattern uses. You can get a fly that's more durable, floats longer, you can catch more fish with it. Yeah, so let's give this one a shot. My good friends Matt and Jerry at the Driftless Angler in Wisconsin have nicknamed this the Skinny Hippie as well, so keep that in mind when we're tying it. Alright, thanks for checking this video out. Hey, alright, let's get after it here. So this is my user-friendly in the vise now. You can probably see some parallels between the Hippie Stomper and this guy. Little foam in there, that McFly wing that I like a lot. The fine barred round rubber legs. Yeah, although we've got a little more slender profile, like I keep saying. Yeah, so let's get after it with this guy. Any color you think that will work well for you, I think's a great option. This lends itself to any color you can think of. Whether you're going for more of a natural kind of imitation, going more mayfly, you know, like I do this guy in a green drake, blue-winged olive, PMD, or kind of more attractor colors. We're going to tie a red one today. I really like this fly in red, purple, lime, blue, all sorts of colors. So whatever color you're confident in is worth pursuing. Alright, let's pop this guy out, put a hook in, and get after it. I'm going to tie this guy in a size 12, nice and big and easy to work with. This fly works well from a 10 all the way down to a size 20, I believe. This hook that I like to tie it on is a TMC 100, pretty much the most standard dry fly hook you can get your hands on. Start our thread there near the eye, but not right against it. Always want to make sure to leave yourself enough room to finish the fly when you're done. Lay down that nice tight thread base that I do with almost all of my flies. That gives us a solid foundation. First step with this guy, this is red superfine dubbing. Another good option is Hairline's got some like micro dry fly dubbing. That stuff works well for this fly too. Just a little bit on there. We're going to start with just a little tiny ball of dubbing at the end of the hook shank here. This is going to give us a little prop that we can prop the tail up against, and that'll help the tail kind of flare outward instead of just falling in kind of a straight line. So just a nice compact little ball of dubbing like that. It shouldn't go down the bend of the hook. Just kind of a nice little round ball there, about even with the barb. Next step is our tails here. The tails for this, it's light done mayfly tails from Hairline, right? You can see that, little bristles right there. They're a nice synthetic little tail. I like to do two on either side of the hook shank. So I'm going to separate a third one off of there. So now I've just got two here. I'm going to flip my hook up there so I can more easily access the other side of the shank. And I like the tail length to be about equal to the overall hook length here. So I'm just going to kind of size it up right there. That looks pretty good. Transfer to the other hand. Line up those guys on top of the hook there. There we go. And I actually leave those kind of long like that, and in a moment you can adjust that and slide it in and then kind of lock it in where you want it to go. Alright, so that's in there now. We've got two kind of light wraps holding it in place. Now I'm going to adjust these, right? I want that to be just a little bit shorter. So I'm going to just slide that forward just a bit. That's closer. I think that's just a tiny bit longer than I want. Give it just one more little tug. There we go. Good, so I like the length on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and make just a couple more wraps to secure that. Go right up against that little red ball of dubbing. Great. Right like that. We'll do the other side. So again, I tie on a rotary vise, so I'm just going to flip it around so I have easy access to this side of the fly. Alright, so there's two more that I just separated out, these little light gray mayfly tails. Maybe they're called light dun, I'm not sure. Light dun, light gray, same difference. So one wrap, couple wraps there just to secure it like I did on that side. Again, slide that guy into position, get the length right where you want it. I'm going to cut those bottom ones just out of the way there. And just get the tips so they're about even over here. Looks pretty good to me. Now I'll make some snug wraps right up against that little red ball. Perfect. See how I've got those tails kind of forked just like a mayfly? I like the looks of that. I'm going to take and bury those tag ends of the tails all the way down what would be the abdomen of the fly. That will give me a little bit more uniform underbody that I'm going to dub over in a moment. That's okay that that bottom one's kind of twisting on us there. It's just more about adding a little bulk that we're going to dub over. There we go. Good enough. Couple more wraps just to kind of hide the tag ends there. I'm going to take my thread back to the end of the hook shank right next to that little red ball. This is one strip of 2mm black foam. This will be our overbody. And I go about equal to the gap of the hook, maybe just a tiny bit skinnier than that. And I'm going to cut this guy to a point. That'll make for a little bit less bulky tie-in as well. So now you can see I've got that little point cut in there. Just position that right on top of the fly. One wrap. Go a little softer at first, don't go straight to maximum tension when you're tying this foam in, otherwise you might cut right through it. Right, and so now I've got about a half a dozen wraps there that are still open, not super tight, and those are just kind of securing it and holding it in there. Now I'm going to go back over that with more tension to kind of bury that in there. And I want to tie this guy down all the way right up next to that little red ball that we started with there. I think that last wrap pretty much got it. I'm going to flip this up and just take a look. I like where we're at. That's great. So now we've got the foam tied in there. It's not really messing with our tails too much, so that's good as well. Get our thread back there next to the foam strip. I'm going to go ahead and grab some red superfine dubbing now. And we're going to dub the abdomen of the fly. And again, like I said in my, oh geez, what other video was that? Maybe my video about tying the heavy metal worm. Less is more with dubbing, I think. I'd rather make a longer, more slender rope of dubbing like I'm doing here, and make a few additional wraps instead of throwing a whole bunch of dubbing into one short stretch and ending up with a really fat, unwieldy rope of dubbing to try to control. This way allows you to create a little bit more precise tapered body. So keep this in mind with all your fly tying when you're dubbing stuff, especially little trout flies like this guy. And now I'm just going to carefully make my first couple of wraps, just keeping an eye on them, make sure that they're touching that little red ball that we started with and that they're touching each other. There we go, and now let's just do a tight uniform dubbed body here. Overlap a couple wraps here just for a bit of a taper. This should get slightly thicker as we progress down the fly here. And I'm just going to continue adding more dubbing. We're going to take this to about the 2/3 point on the hook shank as well. That's where we'll pull the foam forward to for the overbody in just a moment. Getting close, a few more wraps in there ought to do it. One thing I like to say in my fly tying seminars as well is it's always good to learn to tie with scissors in your hand. It's kind of awkward trying to hold a pair of regular scissors like this, but if you can find some snips like these guys in your local fly shop, get used to keeping them in your hand, and that'll save you a bunch of time because you won't be setting your scissors down and picking them up the whole time. There, so I like where I've dubbed to there. Now I'm just going to go back up the dubbing partially just to get a little bit more uniform body. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Now I'm going to pull this foam forward to right there. Take one wrap over it, and don't go straight to maximum tension, otherwise you'll cut through it. Make a couple kind of softer wraps, pinch it, and just slowly work your thread tighter on it like I'm doing there. Alright, so the foam is now pulled forward there, tied off right at the end of our red underbody. And now we're going to create some X-wraps going back to the left, back towards the tail of the fly. So go one diagonal wrap over the back, and then we're going to make one wrap that's perpendicular to the hook shank. So you can see I've got that one little Z shape. I'm going to do a few more little diagonal wraps, and then perpendicular, diagonal, perpendicular, and one more for our final small segment of the fly's body here. Good. Go up and around. Okay, and now we're back at the back portion of the fly again. So what I'm going to do is just follow that same pattern and go back to the right hand side. So go diagonal and perpendicular, diagonal, perpendicular, diagonal, one final one diagonal there as well. Alright, and so what we've created is that series of X-wraps over the foam back there. That doesn't fully compress the foam back, that allows it to still give the fly a little buoyancy, but at the same time that gives it that segmented look that I like. Right? If you look at the underside of the fly, the fish gets to see the segments a little bit more. And that makes the fly more durable as well. That foam is less likely to get cut up and pulled apart with the threads reinforcing it there. So the next step here is to pull our foam out of the way, advance our thread a bit further down the hook shank. Don't go all the way next to the eye of the fly. We got to leave room to finish it when we're done. And then we're going to secure this foam down up here. And again, don't go straight to maximum tension. Start a little bit softer and then get more snug. And what I'm doing here now is I'm going to bury that segment that we just created. It's just like tying a Hippie Stomper. This is where we're going to tie the wings, the legs, and the hackle in. Okay, so we've now got that segment going. I'm going to cut this long tag end partially back just so it's not in our way, just like that. Straighten the tails up a bit. Alrighty, so now I'm going to tie my hackle feather in. That'll be our next step. This is, I think, a whiting silver grade cape. Nice feathers, nice barb count. I really like tying with these guys. I'm going to go ahead and swipe those feathers back a bit, make my cut, and then again, I said this in the Hippie Stomper video, rather than just stripping those fibers off, it's always better to cut them, because that leaves us with those little barbs there that makes for a little bit more durable fly. It gives your thread something more to grab a hold of. Nope, not quite like that. There we go. Good. Just tie that guy right on the top there. Good. So there's our hackle feather in there. Give that a bit of a twist to straighten it if you need to. Our next step will be to tie in some legs on either side of the fly. These are the fine barred round rubber legs that I like. Same ones that I use for the Hippie Stomper. I'm going to double that guy over my thread and then drop it right on my side of the fly there. And then I'm going to secure it down that whole segment that we just created. Once I get another wrap, there we go. So now you can see that guy's kind of following that little gap there. We're going to do the same thing on the other side of the fly. Just kind of even up the tips on these guys, drop it right on there, let go, and then just lay that guy right along the fly, right in that spot where we compressed the foam down earlier. That looks pretty good to me. Next step here is we're going to tie in our wing. This is, it's either gray or light gray McFlylon. It's a nice poly yarn that I tie with quite a bit. And this is the full width of one strand of it. I'm going to go ahead and split this in half and take about 50% of that for the wing on this. This is a size 12, just for reference. Smaller flies will require a little bit less. What I'm going to do, my first wrap, is tie this guy right on top, just like that. Maybe a second wrap for security there. And then I'm going to pull this up. Take one wrap around the base of it. That'll just help lock it in there. So it's kind of like a little parachute post at this point. Maybe one more around the base. Then what I'm going to do is divide that into two split wings and take some figure-8 wraps between them. So again, just pull that into two separate clumps, just like that. You can see I've kind of got it split there. Take some figure-8 wraps, go in between each wing. Go the opposite direction between. And it just takes a few wraps and a bit of adjusting at this stage just to get everything lined up exactly like you want it. And that should be pretty darn close to the center of that segment that we've been tying in there. I like that. Now I'm going to take my thread back to the left here, right to next to where the foam body ends. And I'm going to go ahead and dub the fly's thorax now. This is red ice stub, nice and sparkly, and it's just a little bit bulkier than that super fine dubbing that we used for the fly's abdomen. I like to incorporate a little bit of sparkle to my flies, so I tie with ice dub a fair amount. I think it's a good trigger for getting the fish's attention and convincing them to eat your fly. Alright, so again, kind of a thin dubbing rope there. A little bit easier to control, and I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this area. This is going to be the fly's thorax. Those wraps should be touching. We'll get a nice clean dubbed thorax in here. Sometimes you have to adjust your dubbing just a bit, just like that. I'll make a figure-8 wrap with my dubbing as well. Go right through there. I need to put a little bit more on my dubbing rope here. A little too much. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. Great. Now I'm going to go ahead and follow that figure-8. Just go the opposite way again to split those upright wings there. Take a couple more wraps in front of the wing. Looking good. Good. Alright, so now we've got our upright wings, our dubbed thorax, the legs are in there, we've got our hackle tied in. Now pretty much our final step, other than trimming a few things with this fly, is to wrap our hackle over that thorax that we just dubbed with that red ice dub. I like to try to get about a half a dozen turns of hackle on this fly. It's not quite as densely hackled as a Hippie Stomper. On that fly I want to get as much in there as I can. Whereas this fly, I like that red ice dub thorax to show through just a little bit better. So there's 2.5 turns behind the wings. We'll get about 2.5 in front. Oop, hackle turned over on me. There we go. A little better. go, maybe 2 more turns. There's one more, and then one more turn right up against the foam on the front of the fly there. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and pull everything out of the way here, and I'm actually going to tie this guy off right behind the eye. So one quick wrap there, now my thread is right behind the eye. And I'm going to reach behind my thread, hold the hackle with my left hand there, and sneak a turn of thread right around that eye there. And at the same time grab my hackle. So now the hackle's secure, I'm holding tension on it so it's not going to go anywhere. Now I just need to get a few more turns of thread around that to hold the hackle in. So there's 1, 2. Now I'm going to fold everything back, take a couple more wraps, and then whip finish there. And then it's just a matter of trimming a couple things, and then we are all done with my user-friendly. Again, like I said at the beginning of this video, tie this guy in whatever size and color you think suits your needs. It's not necessarily a hatch matcher, but it certainly can be. I tie it in a green drake and a PMD version that work very well. I also like it in red, purple, blue, lime green. Oop. Swing and a miss. Let's do that whip finish again. Sneak a 2-turn whip finish in there, and I'm going to sneak a couple more turns, 2 or 3. There we go. That's better. That's how it's supposed to go. Alright, so now we're all finished up there. I can cut my thread. I'm going to go back and cut this hackle feather that's sticking out. About like that. I want to trim these wings so they're just slightly taller than the hackle on top of the fly there. About like that. Nice little split to them. Just like the Hippie Stomper, I like to cut the hackle flat on the bottom of this fly. So I'm going to come in from the front with my scissors, take 1 snip there, check it, maybe make a couple more snips. And this just gives the fly the opportunity to sit a little bit lower in the water, gives the fish a little bit better look at it, and I don't think that affects the fly's buoyancy all that much. About the last thing that I see that needs to be trimmed is this little foam tab on the front of the fly. It's just a little bit longer than I prefer. I want that to just be kind of a small head, about like that guy. Having that stick out the front like that, similar again to the Hippie Stomper, as well as a number of other flies that I tie, that acts as kind of a waking lip on there, and that helps the fly stay on top of the surface if it comes under tension. Whether you're mending, picking up to cast, if you want to give it a little skate at the end of your drift. So yeah, that's about it there. That's my user-friendly. In that size 12 red right there. Again, size 10 to 20 is good for this guy, and you pick the color combo and fish it with confidence. Alright? Any questions, hit me up in the comments. I tied this one tonight because it was actually a request. It was either a YouTube comment request or maybe on my Instagram account. I don't recall. But yeah, if you want to see me tie something else, please reach out and let me know. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate it.